Thursday, the 29th of August. Hey, listener. Thanks for joining us. Should be a nice show for you today. Got Duncan Alexander in. Hi, Duncan.
Hello.
Nice to see you. Also with us, Jay Harris.
Good morning.
Good morning to you, Jay. And a very big welcome to Benji Lanyado.
Hey, Jimbo.
All right, the Logan Roy of Pickfair.
Sure. I'll take that.
Yep.
Will I? Yeah. Go on then. Yeah.
Yeah. Off.
See, you always tell me off for swearing, and there you go. What, 30 seconds in?
Yeah.
It's a quote, though. It's fine.
I think so. Top lineup and a pretty exciting set of games to preview. Premier League round 3. I think the best round yet with your Arsenal, Brighton, and your Man United, Liverpool. Benji, your West Ham boys are taking on Man City.
We are.
Could you? Will you?
No, but I think we give it a good go.
Yeah.
We can talk about West Ham now.
No, we'll talk about them later. Talk about Newcastle Spurs later, because you're going to that, aren't you, Jay?
Yeah, it's one of my favourite away games, but Tottenham don't have a great record there.
They don't, do they?
But we'll see if they can change that.
Why do you like going to Newcastle? I mean, loads of reasons, but why do you like it as an away day?
Fantastic atmosphere, although I should point out that the experience from the press box to the away fans is very, very different, because the away fans, you're right up at the very top and it's really steep. I've never experienced it, but I'm constantly told. Whereas a press box, you're right behind the managers. And I always like when you're right behind the bench and get to look at the personal drama. But it's also just a nice... Until you go to the city, you don't appreciate that St James's Park is sort of at the top of Newcastle. So you're sort of walking up Newcastle to go to the stadium. So it feels like a little bit of a castle, feels very grand. And the atmosphere there is just always ridiculously good.
Magnificent. It is the most played fixture in Premier League history to never finish 0-0. Never. What are the odds, Jay?
I mean, there's been 16 goals in the last 3 games, so I'm pretty confident with the way both these teams play that will continue.
All right. Well, we'll talk more about that and all the Premier League fixtures, but let's begin with some words for Sven-Göran Eriksson. We recorded Monday's Euro show before the news came through. I mean, news that we all knew was coming, that he died at the age of 76. I mean, football's a big part of all of our lives and people all over the world. And what a huge part he played in that kind of all-consuming story in so many different roles over the years. First as a kind of genuine coaching revelation, and then later as just this figure, Sven. Not always treated with respect, but I think always with affection and a kind of admiration, no?
Absolutely. You sort of wonder if you transposed his life and lifestyle to today, whether he'd sort of get away with it. You know, I think he might have been.
He got away with it then, didn't he?
Yeah, but it was a different time, and I think a lot of people looking back at the kind of character he was now are doing it really like fondly and appropriately so, because he just was so joyous, wasn't he? He lived his life, and the last words on his statement, and live it. What I think it was quite iconic straight away. R.I.P.
His coaching career, in his own immortal words, first half good, second half not so good. Because I think that gets a bit lost, in all the kind of stints at the Philippines and stuff. Is that he was a genuine, as I say, coaching revelation.
Yeah, I mean, he picked up the sort of English tactics from the 70s and really kind of made them effective, I think. So it was kind of a nice, squaring of the circle or whatever when he actually became England manager. And I think people forget just what a low ebb England were at that point. The Keegan's last game at Wembley, losing to Germany, and it was just, everyone was in despair. Euro 2000 had been horrible. And then within a few months of taking over, obviously, Sven's England won 5-1 in Germany. And from sort of then until maybe Euro 2004, there was a sort of 2-year period when he could do no wrong. And, every player he brought through was great. Obviously, he lucked out with Wayne Rooney coming through at that point. But some just great memories. I mean, I was at the England-Turkey game at the Stadium of Light. It was Rooney's first full debut. And it was, again, one of the greatest atmospheres I've ever been part of. Anyone that thinks he didn't play exciting football, he did. And then, probably should have won. I mean, the Rooney foot injury in 2004 probably did cost England that tournament, I think. But I think just someone who brought joy back to English football.
He even died well. Like I know it sounds ridiculous, but the way he went out was fantastic. he did this kind of like tour of European and world football. He got to manage it. One of his dreams apparently was to manage at Anfield, and he did it. And he sort of announced that he was going, and he had a very, very lovely farewell. Did you overlap in Italy with him?
Yeah, no, I quite a bit.
Yeah.
One of my first season there, I went to interview him at Sampdoria because he was such a big name in the 90s. He was such a big name. He'd won the UEFA Cup with Benfica. He'd taken them to the final of the European Cup, where they lost to Milan in 1990, which happens. He'd won the UEFA Cup with Gothenburg. No Swedish side had ever done that before. And Sampdoria brought him in, and they just lost Vialli, but they still had Mancini, and it was that Lombardo side, all that. And he was super nice. I mean, he was kind of that very understated but nice way. And he actually said, "Oh, come back to my apartment and we'll do the interview there." So we basically did an interview on the terrace. And I'd only been in the job a couple of weeks. So I was essentially, "Mr. Sven, you're amazing. What's your secret?" And he kind of stared at me. But then on various other occasions, the highs at Lazio, the lows when he had to do the first ever online England game with me in a basement in Acton, but all with that same kind of slightly amused, slightly polite, half smile. In Italy, I mean, they regarded him as one of the greats. And whilst he's not, I think, known for being a tactical mastermind or anything, what's really interesting, and this was something they went big on when the news broke, was the impact he had on his former players. That Lazio team that he had with whom he won the title, and it was an amazing squad that Cragnotti had assembled with other people's money, but the number of top-flight managers that have come out of that team: Sergio Conceição, title winner in Portugal; Roberto Mancini, who was by that point his assistant but had been his player; Diego Simeone was part of that team; Simone Inzaghi got to the Champions League final with Inter, won the title last season with Inter; Matthias Almeida as well. And there have been so many others. I mean, even Carlo Ancelotti, you can say, was influenced by him because he was with him in one of Sven's early stints at Roma. But a lovely guy, super intelligent. Again, that whole kind of, he seemed one kind of guy, and then you just go. When I first arrived in Italy, his nickname was the Vicar of Torsby because he was seen as this, very un-Latin, kind of polite, understated Scandinavian. And by the time he arrived at Lazio, this kind of secret began to creep out that he had an astonishing lust for life. He brought so many memories to all of us, I think, Jay.
I was going to say that he's the England manager that I grew up with, the first England manager that I remember, so it would be the same for all of my friends. So I don't look back at that golden generation period with any real angst that England didn't achieve what perhaps they maybe should have done. You just look at it as, those are my core memories. 2002 World Cup, I was 7 years old, and I can remember beating Denmark in the knockout stages. I remember the Brazil game, and it's the same with the Euro 2004. So I think I'll always just be very grateful that he sort of didn't introduce me to football, but sort of introduced me to that first England team as I was really developing my passion for football. So he'll always be a core part of that.
There's that tweet or meme that goes around saying that men can just sit around naming footballers.
Right.
Well, I would happily just sit around naming the footballers in Sven's 99-2000 Lazio squad. It's actually ridiculous. Their strikers were Inzaghi, Salas, Boksic, Kenneth Anderson, Mancini and Ravanelli.
Right.
And then he had Stankovic, Nedved, Conceição, Veron, Almeida, Simeone, and then Nestor and Pancaro at the back. I mean, and Mihailovic, unbelievable.
How did he manage to win the title with that team?
And then gave Gavin McCann his own England cap in his first match in charge.
Is that right?
And Chris Powell spoke very nicely about Sven this week. That was one of his lovely out of nowhere sort of squad picks as well. And suddenly Chris Powell played 3 or 4 games for England. Was playing at Charlton at the time. It's lovely.
Well, we talked about some of his achievements, but perhaps the greatest one, if you'll allow, is to touch so many lives and leave so many people with so many warm memories. So well done, and thank you very much, Sven-Göran Eriksson. All right, we'll move on and start our look at Premier League Match Day 3. Super stuff. Premier League Match Day 3, friends, begins Saturday lunchtime with a top of the table clash. It's Arsenal against Brighton. Arsenal looking for their 9th Premier League win in a row. At 3 o'clock, it's the Red Riding Hood story component Classico, Forest Wolves. That's followed by Leicester, Aston Villa, more precisely a Midlands derby. You've got Ipswich, Fulham, Brentford, Saints. Saints, one of only two sides yet to score this season. The other, Everton, fresh from a midweek win in the League Cup, will be facing Bournemouth. At 5:30, West Ham play Man City. Man City have now won 11 straight Premier League games by at least 2 goals. Can the Hammers put a spanner in those works? Find out at 5:30. Sunday, Chelsea play Crystal Palace. Newcastle take on Tottenham. And at 4 o'clock, slightly earlier than usual for the big game, it's Man United Liverpool. Your all Dutch dugout derby.
Classic Super Sunday slot for me, 4.
Is it?
Yeah, 4:30 is a bit modern. So
Is that right? Was 4 the legacy
4 was the
time?
original one, yeah.
When did 4:30 get
It was
introduced?
trialled a bit in the mid-2010s and then became the default about 4 or 5 years ago, I think. But I think this is obviously police. I'm not sure what difference half an hour makes in terms of policing.
We'll see how Liverpool's new slot makes out in this fixture. And yeah, we did say that last week. But yeah. All right, clearly that's the game we're going to begin with. Man United facing Liverpool at Old Trafford at 4 o'clock on Sunday. It's the first meeting of these two teams without Jurgen Klopp on the sidelines, unless he got suspended for something, but without Jurgen Klopp involved, since September 2015. Who remembers that game?
Is that the Benteke game?
It is! Benteke scored a worldie.
Do you know who set it up?
Ooh, Jay.
Jordan Ibe.
Jordan Ibe. Oh, Jordan Ibe.
Yeah, Jordan Ibe. I'm pretty certain it takes a deflection, so Benteke almost has to readjust in midair.
It's one of the great consolation goals.
Yes.
Do you remember the other big goal in this game? Martin Tyler does.
That's probably one of the most iconic bits of Premier League commentary.
Well, indeed. And
We haven't actually mentioned what it is.
it's Anthony Martial.
the Martial goal.
Martial cutting it in his debut game, I think, looking for all the world like Thierry Henry Part 2.
9 years ago.
Well, yeah.
It's not. So if Martial stayed another year, he would have got a testimonial. That's extraordinary.
So Martial only left Old Trafford this summer. He's now out there as a free agent, unless something happens. Well, as a free agent, so there's no transfer deadline on that, I guess.
No.
Benteke is now at DC United, I think. In fact, there's only 2 players from the 2 teams that featured in that game that are still at their clubs. Luke Shaw and Joe Gomez.
And Gomez has sort of been linked away from Liverpool all summer anyways.
Yeah, but I think the feeling is now that he's unlikely to depart because lots of players coming in. Certainly at Liverpool, 2. And potentially there might be some changes at Man United as well. Big changes in the dugout. We've got this new all-bald Dutch manager look. And we've also got a lot of talk of Man United's progress after their first 2 games. This would be a great time to show it. They've actually only won 1 of their last 12 Premier League matches against Liverpool. Who's seen progress here from Man United so far? Listener, not putting your hand up? No?
I've not seen too much, but then I guess some of the new players are still being slowly integrated, like De Ligt, for example. I'm assuming that after the international break, he'll be starting most weeks with Lisandro Martinez, whereas for now, he's sort of coming on in the final 10 minutes a game. So we'll give them a little bit of leeway and say that, after the international break, when more of their new players have had time to work on the training pitch, that they should get a little bit better. But no, I wasn't really... From the snippets I caught of the Brighton game, Brighton deserved to win.
Well, United were slightly unfortunate with that. Manuel Ugarte could be an interesting signing, but I guess transfer talk for these 2 clubs has been dominated by the most recent arrival at Liverpool of Federico Chiesa. Chiesa, who rocked the €21, becoming Liverpool's second signing under Arne Slot after Mamadashvili, the goalkeeper from Valencia, who won't actually arrive until next season. What do we make of the Federico Chiesa swoop?
I think slightly surprising, but then the price involved...
Yeah, you might as well.
I completely understand it. I think if you'd asked Liverpool supporters at the beginning of the summer what was the one area they needed to strengthen, I don't know if they would have said up front. It's a really stacked lineup when you've got Gakpo, Jota, Nunez, Salah. I'm sure I'm missing somebody as well. It's Diaz.
Darwin?
I did say Nunez.
Oh, did he? That's right.
It's a really potent lineup. So adding Chiesa into the mix, you're going to have a lot of players. It's going to be a little bit of a struggle to keep them all happy and give them regular game time. But I guess the theory will be, don't know what's going to happen with Salah. I'm pretty certain he's just done an interview with Sky Sports ahead of this weekend's game and has sort of said, let's worry about my future later on. Now's just the time to enjoy this next year or so, which, you know, sounds a little bit ominous and that he might be on his way. So I guess Chiesa is, you know, likes to play on the right wing, cutting on the side and that left foot. So sort of stylistically, there are similarities.
I mean, also, let's not forget Liverpool's season semi-foundered last year after Salah knackered himself out at AFCON and then came back and kept getting injured, which for him was really unusual. So I think, you know, he's not getting any younger and being able to rotate a bit with additional Champions League games as well, I think is probably sensible. I think sensible is a sort of the slot buzzword, and everything seems quite sensible so far. So we'll see how sensible he can make the trip to Old Trafford.
I guess the contrast to that is rumours that Man United and Chelsea might swap Sancho and Sterling. Now, to me, if I was a Man United fan, I wouldn't think that was a sensible decision because you're swapping a 24-year-old winger for a 29-year-old winger on massive wages. When you're seeing Liverpool get someone who's 26 years old for, I don't know, 30 million euros or whatever, you can't help but look at that and think that is maybe the direction we should be going in.
Extraordinary, the price tag. Obviously, he's on 1 year left on his contract. So, and Juve wanted to clear him out because they don't feel, for whatever reason, it's worked out for him there. I mean, there were a lot of issues with Juve last season. So him not having the greatest of campaigns on his way back from the ACL then, I think, has some mitigating circumstances. He was a phenomenal player when he was at Fiorentina, and in that Euro campaign, he was one of Italy's standout players. That goal against Austria, woof.
Yeah. I mean, Liverpool haven't got the greatest record with Italian players as well. Balotelli, obviously. Aquilani. I mean, different position, but it does kind of feel a little bit like that transfer in the sense that people are like, oh, it might work out, but then equally. I mean, Aquilani did get a hat-trick of assists against Burnley, which I've never done. But other than that, wasn't great.
I think the price, as you mentioned, Jay, makes it a bit of a no-brainer. He can play and has played all over the front line, so he's a valuable backup in that sense. He's a great ball carrier. People have said, and I think it's fair, that he echoes Salah a little bit, early Salah, in terms of his ability to carry the ball, to take on a man, etc. But it's just
Salah
not
doesn't really do anymore. So,
right.
Yeah.
But as a finisher, there's not much similarity. I don't think. I mean, Chiesa's invented some spectacular goals, but he's never got into double figures in Serie A.
He's not a spectacular goal scorer.
Well, he has scored spectacular goals.
Yeah, but he's not.
I hear what you're saying. Anyway, at that price, you'd be silly not to, I think. As for the Sterling-Sancho swap, do you want to make a case for that, Benji? You make a face for it.
I think it looks like Sancho's more likely to be off to Juve, but if Sterling to United's weird. I can understand why, for a bit of depth maybe on the left, but everyone's talking about how like Man United have signed really well this summer. Have they? Like they've bought like this Lanyaro chap who's about 17 and everyone expected him to be like instant Rio Ferdinand, and he's injured, so it's sort of irrelevant. Like De Ligt has had a chance twice now at a top European club to really like become an elite top Champions League level. Yeah, Juve and Bayern. It hasn't worked out. Mazraoui, you get about sort of 15, 20 games out of him each season. Like Ugarte, that's one that makes sense, right?
Right.
Everyone's talking about this sort of like, oh, now the Ineos chaps are in there doing their kind of, you know, Moneyball marginal gains and stuff. There's nothing amazingly interesting about who they've signed this summer. And if they then buy Sterling, it makes even less sense.
I think you can argue, as Carl Anker did this week, that what the Ineos have done is get rid of players well. They've actually finally, Man United are selling.
What we celebrate now? Is that, I tell you what, I know it matters. I know it matters.
In the PSR world, selling players is the new buying players. But I think they have churned the squad out quite well. And I think to defend Sterling, I think he's people focus on, there was obviously that free kick last season for Chelsea, which went slightly over. But he was good at points last season. He's a very good ball carrier. He does offer that still. I think he's not really showing any sort of signs of slowing down.
He's fine.
In terms of finishing, surely, like in terms of I don't know, XG, haven't his numbers fallen off really dramatically? His ability to convert chances?
A little, but if you look at some of the chances he was getting at Chelsea, they were,
I guess you could also say that United's wide options are Rashford, whose form's just disappeared over the last year, Anthony, who's never proven himself at this level, Diallo, who's still very young, and Garnacho, who's still very young. So I guess throwing Sterling into that mix as a slightly more experienced head might help. But what I was going to say was that I watched Mazraoui's debut against Fulham. I didn't see too much of him against Brighton, but I thought Mazraoui was really good, very good technically. And so to sell Wan-Bissaka for £50 million and buy Mazraoui for a similar price, I thought was a great piece of business.
It's good, but I guess maybe I've got higher expectations of Man United. Like buying a Sterling to be like a
Wesley Sneijder.
Yeah. I know, but it's as you say, Mazraoui is a sensible upgrade on Wan-Bissaka if you get game time out of him. Sterling is will be good. He's good. He's fine. He's an older pro, and they've got a lot of youngsters there, as Jay says. But none of them are really sort of like deeply exciting, are they? These signings for United, and that's kind of I think what the Man United fans were quite like. I don't know,
but he's getting close to playing for all of the big six.
Yeah, he's got quite a wicked
fair play.
Has that ever been done before?
No.
Who's come the closest?
Sterling.
It will be. I mean, I imagine not many players have played for City, United, Liverpool, and Chelsea. So,
wow.
Season at Arsenal, and then 6 months on loan at Spurs.
And Nelka did a fair few of them, didn't he?
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
True. What are you anticipating, Jay, from Man United Liverpool?
I think it's a little bit hard to tell because Liverpool have won both their opening games, but you would have expected them to beat Ipswich and Brentford.
Right.
Hard one. I'm going to say 2-2.
Oh, really? Okay, nice your scoreline prediction.
Yeah, straight down the middle, no mucking around.
Yeah.
Darwin's just been banned from international football for 5 games for scrapping at the Copper.
Yeah.
So he's going to be around, sort of stinking the place out.
Yeah, it was a Knowles, yes. Was it? Have I got this right? No. He was defending families, wasn't he? Yeah.
But in the videos, he clearly did his protecting, then went on the offensive. But
Well,
maybe that is. Yeah. Fair enough. But it's not like Knowlesy then went after the Alkmaar fans. He just stood there like, "Thou shalt not pass."
Right.
Darwin was like, "I am very passing myself into
Nosy
your
Gandalf.
face."
Gandalf.
Yeah.
Boom.
He's sort of the modern Benteke, isn't he?
Nosy.
Darwin Núñez, just not going to quite work out at Liverpool for him, is it? He's got plenty of quality, and he'll get 10-ish goals in a season, but it's just not. It just doesn't
feel
work.
like Slot rates him that highly.
Well, it's his 3rd season there, right, and he's on the bench, so that feels pretty indicative of where Slot thinks he belongs.
Indeed. All right, 4 o'clock then on Sunday. That's the game that rounds off match day 3. Loads of other treats before that. We'll get on to Arsenal and Man City next. Liverpool in action on Sunday this weekend. The other teams at the top go Saturday. Arsenal and Brighton are both off to perfect starts. Face off at 12:30 at the Emirates. Then that evening, 5:30, it's Man City at West Ham. Benji, will you be attending?
Yes, sir.
All right. Are your hammers ready?
No, I mean Man City will beat us, but it's quite an exciting time at West Ham because I think we've got our best squad maybe ever. There's been a lot of talk about our recruitment this summer, but it's 2 summers in a row we've recruited really interestingly. Like last year it was Ward-Prowse and Alvarez, who's been fantastic, Kudus, who's extraordinary, Mavropanos, who's going to be our first choice centre back this year. A lot of new signings this summer, to the extent that our first choice 11 could include 7 players that only joined in the last 13 months, and obviously we've got a new manager, so there's a lot to be worked out. But it's quite. I think of the new signings, Kilman. Whoa, what a player! I've seen 3 games so far. Obviously not a huge amount, but I don't think he's made a mistake yet, and it was the second best marauding centre back run of last weekend when he burst through and laid up Bowen, and Wan-Bissaka sort of did the same. For our first goal. I think quite a bit of cautious optimism at West Ham, but it's going to take a while, and a few of these signings I don't think are going to work out. Like Fulkrug, I don't get that one.
Really?
Everyone
said that's the most West Ham.
I know until I saw him. Like he's not. He reminds me, unfortunately, a little bit of Sebastian Haller, a great player, but just doesn't. I'm not sure how he works in the Premier League. If you serve him, I think Fulkrug's a fantastic centre forward. But and I'm sure he gets that with Germany and did at Dortmund. But we're not quite that team. You've got to make your own chances slightly at West Ham, and we play on the break. And I'm just not sure about him. Todibo as well. He got hooked at half time last night against Bournemouth in the cup. He didn't look great. Now obviously he needs a bit more time, I think.
Right, you went along to that game.
Yeah. It was terrible.
Oh,
really bad game. Yeah.
How'd it go?
Oh, we won 1-0 with a handball in the last 5 minutes, which is
Nice.
great fun because there's no VAR. But yeah, and what quick shout out for some of our old guard as well. Do you know the so Thomas Souček scored his goal? Do you know the mad Thomas Souček stat? Right, okay. Thomas Souček since 2016 has won the most aerials in the Premier League out of any other player. Why is that mad? Because he only joined the league in 2020. So everyone else had a 4-year head start. He's still bonking them out of the air better than anyone else. Anyway, I think that's kind of extraordinary.
That's amazing.
It is amazing.
Mikel
a
Merino
stunning
will beat
silence.
him by December.
Say again?
Mikel Merino will have overtaken him by December.
Is he big, Marino?
But he just wins a lot of
Oh,
duels.
does he?
Yeah.
There's this
Sociedad,
lad.
he was the league leader, wasn't he?
European League.
European.
Yeah, oh, Souček versus
So it's
him.
on.
Yeah. There's this Sweden lad at Bournemouth. I was really impressive last night. He won 10 aerials in his first game, although he might have been replaced by Senesi. Anyway, we ramble.
When is West Ham Arsenal?
West Ham Arsenal?
Yeah.
Oh, what? The Battle of the Bonks?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Not for a little while.
Wow.
I thought that was someone else.
Yeah. Indeed. All right, so you like Max Kilman and you like West Ham's start under Julian Lopetegui.
Yeah, it's hard to see really what's changed so far. And I still think our players from last season are going to have a bigger impact. I mean, ultimately, if you can get Bowen, Paquetá and Kudus into a side, you're going to have a chance of winning plenty of games.
Right.
And it'd be nice to get a cup run, but obviously we're away at Liverpool in the Carabao. But we've got to give it some time under Lopetegui. I'm not quite sure exactly what his stamp is yet, but the squad's looking lovely.
Very nice. Could say the same for Manchester City, who, as mentioned before, have now won 11 straight in the league going back to last season, all by at least 2 goals. They're 25 unbeaten in the league. They won both meetings with West Ham 3-1 last season. So, and Erling Haaland's in terrific forms. Everyone go along with Benji's assessment of West Ham's chances being 0? Nods. Yeah.
I think so.
We'll see. The atmosphere this Saturday for the game, Benji, there were black balloons thrown by West Ham fans last weekend. Is that a price?
Yeah, they're increasing
process.
prices specifically for concessions, so old people and young people.
Okay.
And it's a bit ridiculous because I think someone's worked out it's going to raise them about £600,000.
Uh-huh.
I mean, these days, about in between 15 and 20% of a club's revenue is match day. Like, they don't need to do this.
Right.
That's like 6 weeks of Danny Ings' wages, and they've off a lot of the fans. So yeah, a bit embarrassing from West Ham. Never mind.
Okay.
We historically been quite good at this stuff. We do kids for £1.
Yeah.
We had that last night in the Bournemouth Cup game. So like, why then do this? It's stupid.
Yeah. I mean, given the preponderance, I know TV money's come down, but given the way that the balance has shifted,
Yeah.
and given the models of things like FC Dusseldorf making...
Yeah, I mean, they've done it with away games in the Premier League. They're now capped at £30, aren't they? Like,
Yeah.
what's stopping them doing something like that for home games? I mean, plenty of things, obviously, but like, it just doesn't. It's just not a hugely consequential part of a club's revenue blend. So why off your fans like that? It's embarrassing, and I hope they climb down from it.
You're an angry Benji, and you're right to be. Let's move on to Arsenal Brighton. Both teams with a 100% winning record. This, though, a big test for young Fabian Hürzeler in what should be a lovely, attractive game of football, no? A Brighton and an Arsenal clash.
Yeah, it should be good fun. I know Arsenal beat Brighton at home last season, but Brighton do actually have a pretty decent record at the Emirates over the last few seasons. Obviously, both won their opening games of the season, so it should be a lot of fun. I'm sure Arsenal fans will be hoping that Welbeck doesn't score against them, just like he scored against former club Man United last weekend.
Because they've got a former player of their own in the centre. A former opponent of their own in the shape of Leandro Trossard, the devastatingly effective Belgian.
Yeah, and he was really good in this fixture last season. I mean, I think a lot of Arsenal fans would say it was one of their best halves, the first half in that game. They really negated De Zerbi's Brighton in a way that not many teams did. It was a sign that Arteta really can adapt. So I think it's actually quite interesting Brighton are coming into this with a manager that's only had 2 games, because that might actually help Brighton, I think, just a little bit more potential chaos. But I mean, Arsenal have looked so solid, but both ends so far. I think, yeah, they'll be expecting to win, and I think it sounds ridiculous with 2 games into the season, but with City winning both of their games, Liverpool winning 2, I don't think Arsenal can afford to start dropping points.
You know, you've just put something in my head as well, because I know we were talking earlier about Man United have become better sellers, and I think you could probably say Arsenal have as well if they do get rid of Nketiah and Ramsdale. Ramsdale, I find a little bit odd that someone who this time a year ago was Arsenal's first choice goalkeeper is now joining a team who's just been newly promoted. That's a hell of a drop off. And then Nketiah, I understand from his perspective why he probably wants to leave Arsenal, but with Gabriel Jesus being injured again, it feels like Arsenal are light up front.
Yeah, I agree with Jay that they are light, and I think if Arsenal do anything today or tomorrow in the transfer window, then that's what fans are hoping for. Just on Mikel Merino, reminded me that, do you remember that stat about Virgil van Dijk didn't get beaten in a dribble for about 2 years, whatever it was? The player to start that run, the last one to do it before that run started, was Mikel Merino playing for Newcastle. So,
Wow.
Right.
So, he's got Premier League heritage.
Who broke that record? I remember Nicola Pepe did it.
It was Pepe in the Charity Shield.
And everybody got very excited.
Yeah.
Went past Van Dijk. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Where's Pepe now?
I think he's in
must
Turkey.
Be. Has to be.
I think he's
I
in
don't
Turkey.
know that, but he
I think he's
at
Trabzonspor or something.
Trabzonspor.
By the way, on Brighton, just a quick
Villarreal
Yeah.
now.
Where's he now, sorry?
Villarreal now,
that's
apparently.
That's so disappointing.
But he was at Trabzonspor
Feels
last
very
year.
Turkey.
Okay.
Yeah. Brighton played their sort of B team in the cup this week. I think it was against Crawley. Might be mixing
Crawley,
up.
local derby.
But their B team's amazing. Like they played the young lads Sarmiento and Adingra played, and Ciso, remember him? Won the goal a couple of years ago.
They also played their new Danish midfielder, Matt O'Reilly, who they signed from Celtic.
9 minutes he got.
Yeah,
Absolutely clattered.
absolutely
Needs
clattered
surgery.
by Jay
Needs
Williams.
surgery, which is awful.
Apparently, yeah.
But the ref, classic EFL, so the ref was like, it's early in the game, so it's fine. So, yeah. I mean, that was bad. But yeah, you're right. Brighton's, I mean,
What squad?
they spent a lot of money. Then
Yeah.
nearing 200.
And the funny thing is that De Zerbi was complaining about whether they would spend money, and they've gone out and done that anyways.
I'm increasingly sort of impressed by João Pedro as well. Like, he's a different player. I thought he was a sort of like tricky winger at Watford. Maybe I got that wrong, but he's bulked out a bit. He's playing through the centre. I thought again he was just a centre forward, but no, he's playing behind Welbeck at the moment. He's looking really like powerful and dangerous. Like, I think he's probably turning into one of the best forwards in the Premier League.
All right, big test then for both these teams. What else awaits? We'll be getting on to Spurs and their trip to Newcastle next. League Cup second round this midweek. We've mentioned one or two of the results. West Ham with the victory over Bournemouth. What else happened? Ipswich got knocked out by League Two side AFC Wimbledon. Only the second time the Dons have reached the third round of this competition. League Two side Barrow also through to the third round. They beat Derby on penalties and will face Chelsea next. Chelsea were runners-up in last season.
Seen a Barrow when they, take transfer fees.
Brilliant stuff, Duncan. Just superb. Just superb. As for AFC Wimbledon, they'll be hosting Newcastle in the third round. Duncan, Wycombe Wanderers went to Swansea on Wednesday night. How'd that go?
Yeah, they played well. They won 1-0. Knocked out it was in the Swan Classico. Swansea didn't have a shot on target. And then Wycombe earned a third round tie against Aston Villa.
Have you now? Have you now?
Home or away?
Home. And it's like Villa will be ensconced in their Champions League adventure, so you never know.
Annoying draw though.
Okay, so Benji, I know you, as an angry man, have spared some ire for the new format of the Carabao Cup draw. Take it away, Benj.
So, I mean, there's nothing like wrong about it. They basically, because of the extension of the Champions League, the Carabao Cup and the Champions League weeks now overlap. And as a kind of administrative solution for that, a perfectly fine one, they've essentially put the teams that have qualified for Europe guaranteed home games for the third round, which is a bit annoying for a club.
2 of them are away and 4 are at home.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, Villa and Spurs are away, and the other four, not Chelsea, because that for some reason.
Okay, I'll reduce my angle by 30%.
Okay, that's good to see.
Either
Down to
more spleen,
110% now.
well, either way, I just think it's like, yes, it's a perfectly fine short-term solution. It's annoying for teams like West Ham who then are more likely to get a draw like they've got, i.e. Liverpool away.
Right.
But what I think surely they should do is exclude teams that have qualified for Europe from the Carabao Cup. It makes it into a much more interesting competition. And then you're not just bowing to your UEFA and saying, all right, we'll wiggle around so we can make room for you. It's like, okay, no, we're going to remake this competition into something really exciting and interesting.
A bit like when Man United were playing in Brazil and so sacked off the FA Cup.
Well, no, because to some extent, yes. And it's not that it'll make it much more interesting for that kind of next tier. It'll be almost like the Europa League version of our domestic cup, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, is it a coincidence that your first season for a while West Ham aren't in Europe and Benji's promoting this nonsense?
Well, I mean, there might be a small correlation there, but
I think it's a good idea, but it just wouldn't happen though, would it? Because sponsors of the Carabao Cup would say, all due respect to West Ham, we want a Man United Liverpool final.
Has that cup ever really had the kind of premium sponsorship? I mean,
I'd never drunk milk until I heard about it.
How many Carabaos have you knocked back this morning, Duncan? I mean,
do you know what? I said this or something. I've never drunk Carabao. Have you drunk Carabao?
No, I've never tried it.
No.
Well, there you go. So like
Benji?
No, I don't think I've had a Carabao. And I'm a fan of trying.
A better question: have you ever seen it in a shop before?
I've seen it in a shop.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, go Carabao. Maybe time to rethink that.
It was in a Rumbelows.
Very nice.
Carly.
Rumbelows, not the kind of shop that. Do you remember Rumbelows?
No, I
Of course
don't.
he doesn't. He's only about.
They used to rent
21.
televisions. They used to rent, televisions.
They used to rent television. I didn't even know that was a thing.
televisions.
When they were really heavy.
Okay, I
Big
didn't know that was a thing.
televisions. Yeah.
So you'd rent it for the weekend?
No.
No, for like if you were
6
on
months,
a house
a year.
share, you'd rent a TV for a year.
Okay, I was talking to my little brother the other day. He's 19, and he didn't know what Blockbusters was.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
The game show, yeah?
No, the shop.
Right.
Blockbuster.
Yeah.
Go long on a Blockbuster, I reckon. Could do a GameStop. It's happening. Don't worry, no one knows what I'm talking about. No one knows what I'm talking about.
Newcastle are playing Tottenham. Hey, amongst the midweek treats in the Carabao Cup, try it, you might like it, was Sandro Tonali making his return after the 10-month suspension. Not sure how he did.
I don't know how he did.
Okay, how did he do?
He did all right. Had
Okay.
a good first half, but, to tribute to Sven, first half good, second half not quite as good, went off after an hour, but looked pretty, his passing looked on point, missed quite a good chance. But yeah, definitely looks like, very much like a new signing.
Okay.
So yeah.
They think he might be even better after the work he's done and the time off. I'm not sure how that works. But we might get a chance to see as they host Spurs Sunday at 1:30, slightly earlier time for that as well. Jay, you're heading up for this on the Saturday. What's going to be the big question on your mind about this game as you make that lovely train journey north?
Firstly, will Dominic Solanke play?
Okay.
Because he missed Tottenham's 4-0 victory over Everton with an ankle injury, and Postecoglou said there was a chance he plays against Newcastle, but he didn't seem too optimistic. And then I think if you look at the 4-0 defeat that Tottenham had at St James's Park in April, they just got absolutely blown apart on the counter a couple of times, and there was one really silly goal where I think it was Pedro Porro sort of slices it back towards his own goal, and Gordon steals in and sets up Isak. So I think the question will be, can they just prevent Newcastle from having fun on the counter-attack? Because Benji sort of alluded to it earlier, Mickey Van der Ven is such a fun player to watch, very rapid, and he puts out so many fires for Tottenham. And I think that 4-0 defeat at St James's Park is probably one of the occasions where he couldn't bail them out. Coming up against Isak and Gordon, two of the quickest players in the league. So I think it will just be a question of Tottenham going to be a bit more streetwise.
Right.
Because we know that Postecoglou is not going to compromise in the way that he plays. It's always going to be like that. So there are going to be opportunities for Newcastle. It's just can Tottenham's defence just be a little bit more smarter in certain situations than they have been previously.
Newcastle played full strength team pretty much last night. Only Newcastle and Palace, I think, played more or less the same team from the Premier League to the Carabao Cup, which might have worked for Eddie Howe because they got a nice sort of emotional penalty win at the end. But I do find that a bit odd. I think.
Well, they're not in Europe, and
Ah,
they
very good
do
point.
really
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
win
Yeah,
a
yeah,
trophy. Like, they obviously got to the final 2 seasons ago, and they famously haven't won a proper trophy since
you're right.
since the 50s. So I think for Newcastle, like, the Carabao Cup is a major objective.
No, it's a lovely opportunity for them to get to the final and get beaten by City. So I think they've got to really give it their all. Positionally, I thought seeing Harvey Barnes play on the left and Gordon on the right towards the end of their game at the weekend suddenly made their forward line made a lot more sense, because that right wing position since the Saudis have come in has never quite been like nailed down by anyone. Almiron had like a blistering half a season at some point and kind of drifted off. Not sure about the longevity of Jacob Murphy. So if Gordon can play on the right, and Barnes on the left, Isak in the middle, lovely. I think that's
but then Barnes' his injury record is just
yeah. You're right.
Both wings, though. I mean, both teams' wingers look like it could be a sizzling game on the flanks. This one.
Yeah, definitely, because Tottenham's new signing Wilson Odobert started last week, and that was a little bit of a surprise because, Postecoglou had the option of starting Richarlison through the middle, though he wasn't completely fit, putting Timo Werner on the left, but he just gave 19-year-old Odobert his first start. Yes, he's got experience from playing with Burnley in the Premier League last season, and he looked like a lot of fun. And so it'll be interesting to see what Postecoglou does with the midfield, because at home against Everton, you can play this quite ambitious midfield three of Bissouma, Kulusevski and Maddison. I don't know if you can do that away at St James's Park. But Tottenham going forward are a lot of fun to watch. And Odobert, if he starts, will cause a lot of problems too. Lewis Hall's their left back, isn't he now? So yeah, that'll be interesting.
4-0 to Newcastle on Spurs' last visit. 6-1 to Newcastle on the previous.
There is a 4-0 win for Tottenham in between that. But yeah, the last 2 trips to St James's Park have been ugly.
Joe, you were on the View from the Lane on Monday.
Yes, the Athletics very special Tottenham podcast. So
Twice a week?
Twice a week.
Yeah.
You get to listen to me if that's what people like.
Yeah, although you're not on this Thursday.
Not on today because I wanted to come here.
Thank you, Jay. Other games this weekend, you've got several derbies. Leicester are taking on Aston Villa. It's a Midlands derby. Forest Wolves, also very much so. While in London, Chelsea Crystal Palace. Chelsea, who are officially back on track, of course. What are you sniggering about, Duncan Alexander?
No.
There was a little bit of a snigger.
Well, are they? They might be. No one knows.
Okay. They've got European action tonight against Servette, 2-0 up from the first leg. It's been a turbulent few years, I think we can all agree, at Stamford Bridge. The one constant, though, about life there is that they always beat Crystal Palace. It's 14 wins in a row against the Eagles in all competitions, probably with as many managers, I would think, more or less. Could see Eddie Nketiah make his Palace debut here?
That's a weird one. I don't know why he'd go there.
Why?
Well, they've got Mateta and Edouard already. I mean,
yeah, but I don't think Edouard's got exactly a sensational goal scoring record.
no, Edouard I think is pretty pony, but I think I just can't see him starting many games. And if I was Eddie Nketiah, you want to go somewhere and start. Then it's the whole reason he's leaving.
Yeah, but then firstly, you could say Mateta this time a year ago, no one was raving about him. He just had an exceptionally good 3-month period. We don't know if he'll keep that up. They've always liked him, and then from his perspective, he's grown up in London, so it's probably an appeal to stay in London. And I think it wouldn't surprise me if he started ahead of Mateta. Yes, Mateta was sensational, but I don't think he'd ever. I'm sure Duncan might know the numbers. It'd never come close to replicating those types.
I
of
think it will
performances
all be
before.
up to who Eze wants to play with. Like watching them last weekend. And Palace fans will probably hammer me for saying this, because Mateta's good and Wharton looks really promising, but that team really does feel like Eze plus 10. Like he is everything to the way they play.
To their detriment at times, I think.
I agree, and also like they can easily finish in the top 10 with just do whatever Eze wants plus 10 players, right?
Is he the new Wilfried Zaha then?
He's better than Wilfried Zaha.
Uh-huh.
He's
Well,
way more.
That's a big claim.
He's better. He's much more like because he's central to that team. I mean, literally, positionally. Whereas Zaha was always on the wing or on the shoulder, right? And I just think that, and his quality is exquisite. But he's got an injury in him, and if they're playing him, 90 minutes at the weekend, 90 minutes in the Carabao Cup, we talked about playing the full strength side. I just worry about what happens if he gets a knock or misses a couple of months.
Okay.
I know it's only 2 games in, but is Eze pretty much top for shots taken in the Premier League?
He's up there, yeah.
I know he was very high, but I just remember there was a scenario. I was there when Brentford played Crystal Palace on the opening weekend. I know I think Eze had the most shots that weekend. And there was a point in the second half where Palace were on the counter and he should play it to Tyrick Mitchell, who's overlapping him. And instead he cuts inside and shoots when there's about 4 Brentford defenders in the way. And I think that decision-making in those moments, he needs to be a little bit better.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing you don't do if you've just broken into a team. But when you, to your point, Benji, when you start to realise you are the fulcrum of a team, you do see that a bit more. And to your point about shots, Jay, there's 3 players with a slightly ridiculous early season sample size of 6 shots per 90. There's Madueke with a conversion rate of 50%, which is very good, but probably not sustainable. There's Semenyo with 8.3% conversion rate, which is probably about right. And then there's Eze with 0. So,
0.
Yeah.
Interesting.
He is a really good player, but yeah, I do think he's going to miss games. So.
Okay.
And that's when Eddie will score plenty of goals.
Okay. Be interesting to see what Chelsea team lines up against them. Chelsea in fantastic form just last weekend with Cole Palmer very much pulling the strings. Lorenzo Maresca's outfit. That's, what time's that? 1:30 on Sunday. Going back to Saturday's action, the 3 o'clock slot features Leicester against Aston Villa and also Nottingham Forest against Wolves. So those sound like fun. And also, since we're here, Ipswich, Fulham and Everton, Bournemouth. Crikey. Which excites you most of those games that you can't watch?
Ipswich, Fulham, I think.
Is it Ipswich, Fulham?
Well, because that Ipswich season sort of starts now, I think. They've had, City and Liverpool. It's not very fair.
AFC Wimbledon.
Yeah,
That's slight...
Yeah. And then Fulham, so lots of people have been getting a little bit excited about them. Me in particular, I've been getting very excited about Adama Traore. He's back,
Good, yeah.
right? Now, you know how mad American conspiracy theorists feel about sort of Pizzagate and Hillary's emails, right? That's sort of how I feel about Adama Traore. Like, there is something explosive there that one day is going to change the world of football in wild and crazy ways.
Right.
And Marco Silva is now he's the latest to chisel away, looking for the diamond in this already very sort of chiseled rock. And if Adama clicks, do you not see what I'm saying? If Adama clicks, he'll complete football. Like he'll win all the Ballon d'Ors because he's this unbelievable specimen. He's a sprinter.
Like
Pizzagate
Loma or something.
It's more just that feeling that there's
something there.
There's something
I mean, you can
there.
put olive oil on pizzas, and you can put olive oil on Adama Traore.
There you go. Maybe that's the connection. But he's like, I was quite surprised that he started the season, Adama. But they've got this really exciting forward line now. They really do. Anyway, Ipswich, Fulham.
Ipswich, Fulham.
Pizzagate.
As long as no one mentions the 10-1.
Oh, I was just about to mention the 10-1.
It's bad enough hearing that scoreline every year in December. In August, it's a crime.
Well, there's only been 9 top flight meetings ever between them, and that was one of them.
Well,
They finished 10-1, listener. It was Boxing Day 1963.
no.
What's it going to be this time, Duncan, with your Fulham team only 1 point off that top 5 place that you've been predicting for them?
Yeah.
Do you want to revisit that prediction at all?
No, my prediction was that they'll be in or around the top 5.
No, I don't think or around.
in the top 5.
Yeah.
At Christmas/New Year. Around
Christmas,
then.
in that period.
And everyone will be very excited.
And
me
then
and Benji in particular. And then Marco Silva will get snaffled by
Right.
someone.
So Boxing Day 2024,
Yeah.
top 5.
They'll win 10-1. I don't know they'll
Excellent. Well, that's a game to look forward to, or at least seeing the highlights later on. Forest Wolves.
I worry about Wolves. I also think they've been slightly done over. They have been done over in the transfer market. Like, we've nicked their best defender, who's a bit of a Rolls Royce, for £40 million, which I think is pretty good value. And Neto, I think it's great value.
sorry.
Neto was 50 mil, right? Again, great value.
Yeah. As in Chelsea have got great value for Neto.
Chelsea have got great value, and I think West Ham have got very.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. They've lost both their players for not very much money.
But Neto's injured all the time. I think he's a sensational player. But
that's a fair point. But Neto's not. He plays every minute of every game last season.
Do you mean Gilman?
Gilman is exactly what I mean. Yeah. And it's a bit like Palace. I think it's not. I don't think you can expect the fans to be excited at all when you sell two of your best players, or maybe your two best players in the same window. It's like madness. Anyway, and they won in the cup, and the 2 goals were scored by Guedes. They got this weird squad that just loads of weird Portuguese lads just knocking around, and I don't believe in the way they've replaced Kilmer with Mosquera. He looks like a lunatic.
And yet it's Nottingham Forest who signed Jota Silva, who sounds like a sort of composite Wolves player. So maybe he'll transfer before the game across.
Score an own goal.
Yeah.
In terms of shots on target this season, in terms of teams, it's actually Nottingham Forest 16 in their 2 matches, which doesn't exactly tally with people's expectations, perhaps, of Nuno Espirito Santo.
I mean, weirdly for Forest, they've had 2 years of buying every player on the planet, and this summer slightly less so, and they've looked quite, interesting against Newcastle in midweek in the League Cup. They did go full reserves pretty much, and you looked at their team and you're like, that's a pretty good squad.
Right. Awoniyi's penalty wasn't very on target though.
Was it not?
Have you seen it?
I mean, it did land in the Trent, I think.
I think it was more than the height of the goal over the goal.
Yeah.
That was a real wallop.
But on Forest, if you look at XG so far this season, huge, caveat, small sample size, etc. The top 3 are Liverpool, City and Man United. Then it's West Ham, and then it's Forest. So, there's a little quality of chance created guide. I think they're doing pretty well.
Very nice. The other Midlands derby, Leicester Aston Villa.
The Brian Little Classico, as it's known. Yes, well, older fans for both clubs will remember that he basically walked out of Leicester in '94 to go and take over at Villa, and it was quite the move. And there's still, I think that even now there's still a bit of bad blood over it. So, yeah. More recently, wasn't this the last fixture before COVID?
Yeah.
Again,
Although
Brian Little had little to do with that. Although his surname did describe how much football we were about to watch over the next few months.
Very true. That game finished 4-0 because it's been mentioned, that fixture, and its role in history. 4-0 for the Foxes. That was at the King Power, as is this. Villa very much in the ascendancy since then. Leicester have been down and back up. Anything you want to say about that game? Should we just see what happens?
I was just going to say the only other thing I'll be keeping an eye on, less so the weekend, but more the next 48 hours, is if Brentford sell Ivan Toney.
Okay.
Although it should be pointed out the Saudi Pro League transfer deadline day is not this Friday. I think it's next week sometime.
Okay.
But that's been dragging on for 2-3 weeks now.
Brentford, who are going to be hosting Southampton, again, Saturday, 3 o'clock. Southampton, who may well have Aaron Ramsdale between the sticks for that game. Southampton have played the most passes in the Premier League this season, quite possibly had the fewest shots with that. Brentford, you're probably quite confident of their chances in that game, are you, Jay?
Yeah, there's also a little bit of interesting history for people that don't know, but basically Rasmus Ankersen, who's CEO of Sport Republic, who owns Southampton, if I've got that right, had a massive role in the modern day Brentford. He was co-sporting director with Phil Giles underneath Matthew Benham, and then he left them in January 2022 to take over at Sport Republic and Southampton. So now that Southampton are back in the Premier League, this is quite an interesting situation going on behind the scenes there, that he's sort of returning to where he sort of made his reputation. But yeah, I'd expect Brentford to win. I think the attacking options they've got at their disposal are really, really good, but just at the moment it is just still, will Ivan Toney be there or not? It's just dragging on. It's 2 weeks since they first received an offer from Al Ahly for Toney, but there's still been no agreement reached.
If he leaves, but after the transfer window closes for Brentford, how much of a problem is that they won't be able to spend the money?
They've already spent the money.
Okay.
They replaced him way back in February when they signed Igor Thiago from Club Bruges, but the problem is Thiago damaged his meniscus in pre-season, so potentially might not play this year. So it's a little bit unfortunate. But I think obviously I've covered Brentford for 3 years. I think it's important for them to sell Toney in this window because it just feels like the only time people talk about Brentford is to talk about Ivan Toney. And I sort of get the impression that everybody's a little bit tired of it. There's a video going around of Thomas Frank being asked about Toney's future, and he's like, nothing's changed. Like, circumstances are still the same. He's not going to be in the squad while there's all this situation going on. And I think he's been fantastic for them. They've been fantastic for him. Feels like the right time to cut ties. And I think the sooner that happens, the better for everybody.
The other game this weekend is Everton-Bournemouth. Bournemouth have also got themselves a brand new keeper. Kepa is going to... I'm surprised because I thought Neto last weekend looked really good against Newcastle.
Yeah, same thing. He's their captain as well, Neto. So I don't understand. Like Ramsdale going to Southampton, perfect sense. They really need a keeper, and what's his name's injured.
Bazunu.
Bazunu, yeah.
Sounds like a toddler describing a game of football, doesn't it?
What?
Kepa Neto. But yeah, I mean, he's still the most expensive goalkeeper in the history of football.
Yeah, I think so. I had this conversation with somebody the other day.
Go and then just gone Real Madrid, Bournemouth. That old route. What a world.
What a world. Anyway, he'll be joining the Cherries. Everton, who didn't look good last weekend in their clash with Spurs, did win in the Carabao Cup against League Two Doncaster on Tuesday.
Should say with Everton that they've got a horrible injury list at the moment. So I think they could only name 14 senior players in their squad against Tottenham. So, for example, I was, sort of raving about Wilson Odebear earlier, and James Maddison had a good game, but they were coming up against Roman Dixon, who I think is 19 years old, making his Premier League debut at right back. So,
and he replaced Ashley Young, didn't he?
And he replaced 39-year-old Ashley Young. So the circumstances favoured Tottenham and did play well. So you do feel for Deitch a little bit that he's sort of muddling through with very much bare bones of a squad.
Everton Ndiaye as well scored a lovely goal midweek.
No, I was just going to say that sympathy running pretty short among Everton fans. I'm not sure if you saw the scenes of them barracking the Everton players after that 4-0 defeat to Spurs. They do have a good record against Bournemouth. They've won 6 of their 7 meetings in the Premier League with the Cherries at Goodison Park. However, worryingly, Sean Dyche has never won a game with Everton in the month of August. If you like month of August stats, this one's a doozy. He's lost all 5 of his matches as Everton manager in the aforementioned month without his team scoring as much as a single goal. Crikey. This game takes place on the 31st of August. Just saying. Anyway.
Obviously, Dyche spurred some good form for Everton last season by switching from a suit to club leisure wear. I'm not sure what the next move after that is. Beach wear? I mean, Sean Dyche was just a pair of Bermuda shorts.
Yeah.
Everton branded Speedos or something like that.
Owen Coyle style. Yeah. I like it. Well, that's very much all the Premier League fixtures this weekend. And I think you're all... Duncan, where are you going to be? Who have Wickham got?
This weekend they are away at Blackpool.
Okay.
But I'm not going.
All right. Buoyed by last weekend's victory over Rotherham.
Very much so.
When you were completely dominated by...
Well, I won't go that far.
I was referencing Wickham's TikTok response to Steve Evans.
Yes, that was very good.
Senior boy Potts has gone off to Portsmouth.
It's a good move for him, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, this is very niche. Wickham, West Ham, loan signing chat.
Gideon could do it though. Good player.
Right.
Has he gone to Wickham?
Yeah, he played probably best player against Swansea.
No. Jay, Jimbo, talk amongst yourselves. So, he's really highly rated.
Who's this?
Gideon Kadua, youngster's gone on loan to Wickham, where Freddie Potts, I think, very good.
Yeah.
Freddie Potts, player of the season last year for Wickham. Yeah, he's now graduated up to. That was in League One. He's graduated up to Portsmouth now in the Championship. So yeah,
we're just going to stop the pod, but you guys feel free to keep going. Benji, thank you so much for coming in. I hope that in some way we've answered some questions, calmed a bit of that.
I feel a bit more zen.
Nice one. Always lovely to see you. Jay, thank you for coming in. Have a great trip.
Thanks
for
having
Castle
me.
on the Hill.
Yeah, I will.
Duncan, I'll be seeing you on Sunday. Of course, that's where you're going on Sunday. You're coming here for our Hot Take special, Sunday night Totally Football show fresh off the back of Man United Liverpool. So listen, I do hope you'll be part of that too when that drops, or live as we're putting it together, because of course that's very much an option these days via YouTube. Excellent. Many thanks to Liam and Charlie in the booth. You, listener, we'll be back Sunday. For now, from all of us here, it's goodbye. The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.